What's up, y'all? It is Connor from Rock Pokemon here. This is my first video for you guys, and this is kicking off a series I have dubbed Market Mondays, where I want to give you guys some of my thoughts on the collectibles market as a whole, give you guys some of the ideas I have around investing, buying, selling, collecting in general, and try to get a few points across that hopefully will help you make better decisions, whether you're collecting Pokemon or coins or anything in between. So to kick it off, I just want to tell a little about me and my backstory real quick. Turning 30 years old this year. I have been collecting Pokemon since '99, playing Pokemon Yellow on my Game Boy, collecting the cards, especially Team Rocket, as I recall as a kid. Always kind of collected on and off along the way, but largely collected Pokemon, Harry Potter, as you'll see back there, sports cards, sports collectibles, and art, big art collector. So I work in the financial services industry, so full disclosure, none of this is financial advice, nor should be misconstrued as financial advice. It's solely my opinion on what has become a alternative asset class or a market, and that is collectibles, right? So something I wanted to do in this first video was really lay the foundation for the Pokemon quote unquote market as a whole. And I think just to put things bluntly, there has been an incredible amount of hype and money flow into this hobby over the past year or so, throughout the pandemic, because of a few influencers getting into Pokemon as well, as you might know. Among other things, there has been just an incredible boom in the collectibles industry and Pokemon especially. What I hope to do is give you guys my thoughts on, what it means to put your money into an item in this hobby. So I think just to put it pretty bluntly, there's a couple kinds of actors in this hobby, and you need to decide kind of what you are and what you're actually doing. And most simply stated, 99% of what is done in collectibles is buying. It is not investing. I'm sorry, that is just what it is. Spending money on cards, sealed product, modern, vintage. There's only a very certain subset of that spending that's true investing, in my opinion. So what I hope to do is kind of help explain that a little bit to you guys and make things a little more clear for you. In my opinion, buying modern cards, product at Target when you can get it, product online, and opening it up and enjoying it, that's buying a product. That's buying a commodity, a consumer good that you truly enjoy. In today's market where there's incredibly elevated prices, I think a lot of people are fooling themselves into thinking that they are investing when they're really just buying stuff. So where that line starts to get more murky is, if you are, speculating or flipping or playing on the momentum of the hobby. So for people who buy items, for $1 with the expectation they can flip it for $1.50. And if they do that over and over and over again, you can, make some profit there. Again, not exactly investing. More of a momentum trend type play, or broadly speaking, flipping, right? So because you're in and out of the market so fast, you're not truly part of that market as what I would say a long-term investor. A lot of then what is done, especially on modern product, is what I would call speculating. So, for example, you might have someone who looks at this very, very nice prism, or stained glass birds, hollow, and says, hey, I think I can buy this card for $20 and get it graded, and maybe if it comes to be a 9, I could sell it for 100, or I could hold it for a few years and have it be worth 500. It's gonna go up in value no matter what. That's probably not the case. There are probably a high quantity of these in fairly high quality, and over time they may not prove to hold the type of value or have the type of returns that people think Pokemon will have. And that's really just a function of prices have moved so much, whether it's vintage or modern, that it's really hard to justify those prices continuing to grow at such a rate when they have disaggregated from their intrinsic value so much. So at any rate, look, if you're buying a card like this, it's probably pure speculation if you think it's going to go up in the long term. So just my 2 cents there. And then when it comes to longer term investing, really something that I think is a part of the hobby that's truly what I would call maybe an investable part, aside from maybe some rarer, scarcer trophy cards, for example, some items of really, really pristine quality, PSA or Beckett or CGC 10s that have very low populations but are also highly sought after. Those are parts of the markets that could, hold some long-term value. They could be an investment and have fairly substantial growth year over year when you annualize it out. But at the end of the day, they will probably have some sort of price appreciation if there's enough folks who demand it. But the one part of the hobby I truly see as a long-term, hopefully slow and steady type of investment would be sealed product. Something like this, right, where it's a booster pack from the vintage WotC era, late 1990s, early 2000s, where the supply is continually going down because people are opening them. Condition matters, so something not being dented and destroyed and ripped, but something of pristine quality, sealed, could be something very interesting for the long term. Now, that to be said, it could be worth nothing. 10 years from now, people, might not like Pokemon anymore, and it might be worth nothing, right? So, but at least then I can open it. So, just my take on the market as far as like a more longer term investment standpoint. And then the last thing I'd say is you just have to be really careful with what you're buying and be willing for it to, basically be worth nothing, and you still be happy. So example, these first edition Red Cheeks Pikachu, this is a card that was, formerly in the, $50 to $100 range, ran up quite substantially. There were people buying these for over $2,000 at one point, and now they're probably sitting around, $850 to $1,000 in value in today's market. If you were one of the people who unfortunately bought this at $2,000 and you've now been cut in half to $1,000, it's going to take you a very, very long time for you to recoup that value back to $2,000, if ever, because this card, while quite beautiful, has probably 1,500 or 1,600 total graded at PSA, not to mention the amount that people have sent in that aren't graded yet or might be sitting in people's collections. So not it's not like there's 5 of these in the world. It's not that scarce, and it's a 9, not a 10, so it's not perfect by any means, but a a beautiful card that I personally enjoy, am content to hold, and if it was worth nothing, I'd probably be okay with that. I mean, it's iconic to my childhood. It's something I love and cherish dearly. Same idea with this card up here. So kind of more unique Bandai card as Togepi Pikachu Prism card. Iconic from the anime. Just a really beautiful card that reminds me of my childhood, both because I love to watch the show and love Togepi and Pikachu, and also because I used to get soft serve ice cream with my dad all the time. So this just reminds me of my childhood, and I love it. And it doesn't really matter if it doubles in price or gets cut in half, because I bought it because I wanted it, right? So there are things in this hobby that I think are potential purchases to be made that are in true investments that have long-term potential to either be a store of value, keep up with inflation, or potentially see some sort of still continued appreciation over time. But I think the biggest issue is that people need to realize, and I'm going to break the whiteboard out for y'all. If we look at where the market's been in, let's say since 2016 or so, when Evolutions came out, right? So you started down here and you kind of muddled along. You had an increase when Evolutions came out, and then the market kind of retraced again and just muddled along. And then you had the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden things went absolutely parabolic. And now we've seen probably a 25 to 50% retrace. If you bought cards or booster packs or anything, in this time period, this is still quite a nice return. But it's also what we would probably consider bubble territory, where things have been hyped up so much and have moved so much away from their intrinsic value that it's quite difficult to justify some of the prices that we've seen up here. And that's why you've seen this kind of retrace down. I think what's interesting is that what's occurred here is that there has been certain items that have gone up in value still, and certain items that have gone severely down in value. And so what you get is kind of this K-shape where you have certain items in the hobby going up, certain items going down. Your overall market is still retracing, but it's quite heterogeneous. And you got to remember, if you bought here at 2,000 for that Pikachu, and now it's worth 1K, and it could still go to zero, if people decide they don't want it, or it could go to 500, you never know if the population doubles. You got to realize that, one, this was where something was in a bubble territory, right? When things were so hype driven and people were just buying, throwing caution to the wind. You have to realize that this spot we are here, while it's still a 50% retrace from where we were up here, if you look at it in the big picture, if you owned this long enough and you bought it, let's say back here at $100, and then it went up to 2 and went back to 1, right? So let's call this 1K. This is not to scale, and this is 2K. This is still a 10x return from this point. And what I'm trying to say here is that we're now sitting at this level, right? This is the level we're at in the hobby. Okay, and your entry point means everything. So if you were here and you were speculating on this as a long-term investment or opportunity, like not many people in the hobby did, only a select few, let's call it 2016 or whatever, and now we're in, this was like late 2020, and now we're in, what are we in, May of 21. If you entered here, your cost basis is quite low, and you've done very well from yourself, even with this severe retrace, right? You could have sold here if you got lucky, but you can never time the market. All this to be said is your entry point matters. So we don't know what's going to happen from this point, right? The market could rebound, and this, slowly over time could head this way, could just stay flat forever, or it could just continue to fall. Or fall like a knife and the bubble pops, right? So I think the most important thing to realize when it comes to this hobby, and the point I want to get across more than anything, if you take away one thing from this video, it is that any money you put into Pokemon, you need to be willing to lose it all. This is a highly speculative asset class. It is an alternative to traditional financial markets. And with that comes high levels of illiquidity, high risk, and above and beyond everything else, just a large amount of opaqueness, right? No one has any idea the ebbs and flows of nostalgia and brands and intellectual property. I mean, what if, the Pokemon company makes a misstep with something from a public relations standpoint and people just have it completely fall out of favor in the modern market, and Pokemon starts to just kind of, go away. That's a huge risk here. So I think that it all comes down to you understanding that your entry point is everything. Be willing for it to go to zero, and that you need to understand that this is high risk, and that at the end of the day, you need to be okay, just like me, that if this card only ends up being worth the 50 cents of plastic and the half-cent piece of cardboard, that you're still going to be happy. So that's my first Market Monday, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that this will help you make better informed decisions when it comes to your hobby collecting, and we'll see you next Monday.